Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. Steven here with Team Euphoric, and today I'm going to be taking you through 20 common neurological conditions along with targeted exercises you can perform to speed up your recovery and eliminate your pain. Now let's get started. The 10th neurological condition is brachial plexopathy, which is when there's compression or an injury to the brachial plexus, causing shoulder weakness, arm pain, and paresthesia. To treat this condition, nerve gliding exercises are terrific when prescribed correctly. Here are two nerve gliding exercises for the brachial plexus. First is the general brachial plexus nerve gliding exercise. What you would want to do is we are going to either be in a seated position or standing. Doesn't really matter. The execution of the exercise is going to be identical. But what we want to do is a contralateral side bend of the cervical spine. So if your issues are on the right side, we are going to bend the head to the left. What we would do is 3 to 5 repetitions. And what we are looking for is you want to check in and ask yourself, are my symptoms getting better, worse, or staying the same? If your symptoms are either getting worse or staying the same, stop immediately. There is no need to continue with the exercise. We don't want to exacerbate your symptoms. However, if your symptoms are getting better, perform an additional 20 repetitions of contralateral cervical flexion. Now, let's say you do the contralateral cervical flexion and you don't notice any reproduction of your symptoms. What we could do is add an ipsilateral shoulder depression. Ipsilateral, same side. So if the right side is affected, we're bending to the left and then depressing the shoulder on the right side. So we could go ahead and maintain a static hold and just do 3 to 5 depressions and then check in with ourselves and ask ourselves, are my symptoms getting better, worse, or staying the same? If your symptoms are getting better, go ahead and perform an additional 20 repetitions. If your symptoms are getting worse or staying the same, stop immediately. There is no need to continue the exercise. We don't want to exacerbate your symptoms. However, if they have gotten better, we would go ahead and maintain that static position and then 20 repetitions of shoulder depression. A couple of other ways that we could do this. We could also perform it a little bit more dynamically. And what we could do is we could do an ipsilateral flexion with ipsilateral depression. And then we could do contralateral flexion with ipsilateral elevation. So we're going side bend down, side bend up. So as we go up, what we're doing is we are releasing tension on the brachial plexus at the distal attachment while we are getting more tension at the proximal attachment. And then when we come over here, what's happening is we are getting less tension at the proximal attachment. And then by depressing, we're getting more tension at the distal attachment. So we could just go ahead, do that. Same thing, you do 3 to 5 repetitions to see how everything's feeling. And then the final progression is we could go ahead and get maximum stretch at both ends. So we could work proximally and distally. What we would do is we would do an ipsilateral cervical flexion with an ipsilateral shoulder elevation to put the nerve under slack. And then to get tension on the nerve, we would do contralateral cervical flexion with ipsilateral shoulder depression simultaneously. So we're going slack, tension, slack, tension. And those are all of the different ways in which we can work on the actual brachial plexus if there's any type of tension. Next is the specific brachial plexus nerve gliding exercise with the emphasis for thoracic outlet syndrome. We could either be in a seated or standing position, doesn't really matter, but the execution is going to be identical. First thing that we want to do is go into retraction of the scapula. So we're going to squeeze those shoulder blades together and do that 3 to 5 times. And after that, we want to check in with ourselves and ask ourselves, are my symptoms getting better, worse, or staying the same? If your symptoms are getting worse or staying the same, stop immediately. There is no need to continue with the exercise. We don't want to exacerbate your symptoms. However, if your symptoms have improved, then we would perform an additional 20 repetitions of scapular retraction. Let's say you did the scapular retraction and you didn't notice any reproduction of your symptoms. What we could do is build tension from there by adding ipsilateral rotation. Ipsilateral, same side. So if your symptoms are on the right side, we would go into scapular retraction and then we would look to the same side of where the pain is. Keep that retraction, and then we could go do 3 to 5 repetitions, and same thing, check in with yourself, ask yourself, are my symptoms getting better, worse, or staying the same? If your symptoms are getting worse or staying the same, stop immediately. There's no need to continue the exercise. We don't want to exacerbate your symptoms. However, if they're getting better, keep that retraction, and then do 20 repetitions of ipsilateral cervical rotation. Let's say you do the scapular retraction, you do the ipsilateral cervical rotation, and you're noticing no reproduction of your symptoms. What we could do is take a little bit more tension on the nerve by maintaining those positions and going into coronal abduction, abduction of the humerus. Do 3 to 5 repetitions, and then ask yourself, are my symptoms getting better, worse, or staying the same? If your symptoms are either getting worse or staying the same, stop the exercise immediately. There is no need to continue the exercise. However, if your symptoms have improved, we would do an additional 20 repetitions. So we maintain the retraction, we maintain the ipsilateral cervical rotation, and then we're just going to do 20 repetitions of coronal shoulder abduction. Let's say you've done the retraction, ipsilateral rotation, and abduction, and you still haven't noticed a reproduction of your symptoms. What we could do is add a component of lateral rotation to get a little bit more tension. So we maintain the retraction, ipsilateral rotation, abduction, and then do 3 to 5 repetitions of lateral shoulder rotation. Check in with yourselves again and ask yourselves, are my symptoms getting better, worse, or staying the same? If your symptoms have either gotten worse or stayed the same, stop the exercise immediately. There is no need to continue the exercise. We don't want to exacerbate your symptoms. However, if your symptoms have immediately improved, we would go ahead, maintain the retraction, ipsilateral rotation, and abduction, and we would perform 20 additional repetitions of lateral shoulder rotation. And that is how we can alleviate tension on the brachial plexus. The 11th neurological condition is piriformis syndrome. That was just a tiny taste of what can be found in my members only section. If you enjoyed it, become a member for only $5 a month to get access to hundreds of member only videos.